There is a moment in your life where you start to realize something very strange. The more they tried to block you, the more things quietly shifted in your favor. The situations that were meant to break you somehow lost their power right before reaching you, and the people who expected you to fall are now the ones watching in confusion as you keep moving forward without stopping. You may not have noticed it at first, but there is a pattern in your journey that cannot be explained by effort alone. Because something has been protecting your path in ways you never asked for and could never fully control. And what is about to happen next in your life will make this impossible to ignore, because the same protection that carried you through the past is about to reveal itself in a way that will shock not just others, but even you. One of the biggest misunderstandings people have is thinking that protection means an easy life where nothing goes wrong and everything feels peaceful. But your life tells a very different story, because your protection did not remove the struggles, it controlled them. It allowed you to go through pressure, betrayal, confusion, and emotional exhaustion. But it never allowed those things to completely destroy you, and that is the detail most people overlook. Because there were moments where you were close to breaking, moments where you felt lost, drained, or even ready to give up. But somehow you didn't fully collapse. Something inside you held on. Something kept you thinking, learning, and moving forward even when you had no clear strength left. And that is not something you can explain as luck or coincidence. Because if you look closely, you will realize that certain situations could have gone much worse. Certain decisions could have ruined your path, and certain people could have had a deeper negative impact on your life. But somehow, there was always a limit. Something stopped things from going too far. Something redirected you at the right moment. And something kept your core intact, even when everything around you felt unstable. And when you truly understand this, your perspective shifts completely, because you stop seeing your past as just pain and struggle, and you start seeing it as proof that you were being carried through those moments in a controlled way, and that the real protection in your life was not in avoiding hardship, but in surviving it without losing your identity, your purpose, or your direction. And that realization builds a quiet but powerful confidence inside you, because now you know from experience that no matter what comes next, you are not as vulnerable as you once thought. And you are not walking through life unguarded. You are moving forward as someone who has already been tested, already been sustained, and already been protected in ways that go far beyond what you could see at the time. There are people who never showed their true intentions openly, people who smiled in your face, spoke kindly, and acted like they supported you. But deep inside, they carried jealousy, silent competition, or even a desire to see you fail. And what they didn't understand is that hidden negativity does not go unnoticed, because even when no one else can see it, it is still known. And that is where your protection becomes even stronger. Because when someone moves against you in secret, the response to that is not always loud or immediate. It is quiet, precise, and often confusing to them. Because their plans start to fall apart in ways they cannot explain, their timing becomes off, their confidence weakens, and sometimes they even expose themselves without you doing anything at all. And this is why you may have noticed people distancing themselves suddenly, or situations shifting in your favor without you forcing anything, because your protection is not based on how much you react or defend yourself. It is based on something deeper, something that sees what is hidden and responds in a way that is beyond human control. And over time, this creates a gap between you and them that they cannot close, because while they are trying to operate quietly against you, your protection is operating at a level they cannot reach. And eventually, their own actions begin to turn against them, not because you fought back, but because they were never truly in control of the outcome in the first place. There were moments in your life where you felt stuck, where things you truly wanted did not happen no matter how much effort you put in, where opportunities slipped away at the last second, where doors closed without explanation, and where it felt like your progress was being blocked for no clear reason. And in those moments, it is very easy to believe that you are being ignored, left behind, or even denied what you deserve. But the deeper truth is that not every delay is a loss, and not every closed door is a rejection, because sometimes what feels like a pause is actually a layer of protection working in your favor, protecting you from stepping into situations that were not right for you, from connecting with people who would have caused more damage than growth, or from entering environments that would have drained your energy and distracted you from your true direction. And the reason this is so difficult to understand in the moment is because you can only see what you want right now. You cannot see the full picture of what that path would have led to if it had opened earlier. And that is where trust becomes important. Because timing is not random. It is controlled in a way that places things into your life when you are ready for them and when they are right for you, not just when you desire them. And if you reflect on your past, you will start to notice that some of the things you once wanted so badly would not have benefited you the way you imagined. And some of the delays that frustrated you actually gave you time to grow, to learn, and to become more prepared for what was coming next. And this is why your journey has a different rhythm compared to others. Because you are not being rushed into outcomes, you are being guided toward the right ones. And once you truly understand this, you stop chasing everything that appears in front of you, and you start moving with patience and awareness, knowing that what is meant for you will arrive at the right time, in the right way, and with the right conditions, and that every delay you experienced was not holding you back. It was quietly positioning you for something better than what you were originally asking for. People expected you to react, to defend yourself loudly, to prove your worth, or to respond with anger when you were disrespected or misunderstood, because that is how most people operate when they feel attacked. But instead you chose calmness, you chose control, and you chose not to let every situation pull you into conflict, and that is exactly what confused them. Because they were prepared to deal with someone emotional and reactive, but they were not prepared to deal with someone who stays grounded under pressure. And this kind of calmness is not weakness. It is strength built on trust, patience, and self-control. And we see a powerful example of this in the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who faced constant insults, rejection, and harm from his own people. Yet he did not respond with uncontrolled anger or revenge. Instead, he remained patient, composed, and focused on his purpose, even when he was mocked, even when he was attacked, and even when people tried to destroy his message. And one clear example is when he went to Taif seeking support and was met with harsh rejection and physical harm. Yet, instead of reacting with anger, he chose mercy and restraint. And that response showed a level of strength that completely went beyond what people expected. And in your own life, your calmness works in a similar way. Because when you refuse to react emotionally, when you do not engage in unnecessary arguments, and when you stay focused on your path, it removes the control others think they have over you. It denies them the reaction they were hoping for, and over time it shifts the entire dynamic. Because while they are wasting energy trying to provoke you, you are preserving your energy and moving forward. And that is why your calmness becomes a form of protection itself, because it keeps you aligned, keeps you clear-minded, and prevents you from making decisions that could take you off your path. And in the end, it is not the loudest person who wins. It is the one who remains steady, disciplined, and focused when everything around them is trying to shake them. One of the most important realizations you will ever have in your journey is understanding that the strongest form of support in your life is not always something you can see, measure, or point to, because most people are trained to believe that success, protection, and progress come only through visible means like connections, powerful friends, financial backing, or public support. But your life has already shown you a different pattern, a pattern where even in moments when you had no strong people standing beside you, no major resources backing you, and no clear external advantage, things still worked out in ways that cannot be easily explained. Because your support system operates beyond human limitation, it works quietly, it works consistently, and it works in ways that are perfectly timed. And this is why there were situations where you expected to fail, but somehow you found a way through, moments where you thought no solution existed, but suddenly a path appeared, and times where you felt completely alone, but still managed to make the right decision, avoid the wrong direction, or recover from something that should have set you back much further. And this is not something random. This is what happens when your support is not dependent on people. Because people can be inconsistent. They can promise help and disappear. They can support you when it is easy and step back when it becomes difficult. They can misunderstand you, doubt you, or even work against you. And if your entire sense of stability depends on that kind of support, then your foundation will always feel uncertain. But when your support comes from something higher, something that does not change based on moods, opinions, or circumstances, then your entire approach to life begins to shift, because you no longer feel desperate for validation. You no longer feel the need to chase people's approval, and you no longer feel like you are completely alone when things get difficult. Instead, you start to notice a different kind of pattern. You begin to see how certain people enter your life at the right time to help you move forward, how certain opportunities appear exactly when you need them, how certain obstacles are removed before they can fully block your path, and how even your mistakes sometimes lead you toward better outcomes instead of complete failure. And the more you reflect on these patterns, the more you realize that there is a level of support guiding your journey that does not require constant visibility to be real, and this understanding builds a deeper sense of trust inside you, because you are no longer relying only on what you can see. You are also trusting what you have experienced repeatedly, and that experience tells you that you have been supported even in your weakest moments, even in your most confused states, and even in times when you doubted everything. And this kind of awareness changes the way you move forward, because instead of operating from fear, you begin to operate from quiet confidence, knowing that even if people leave, even if plans change, and even if situations become uncertain, you are not completely without support. And this does not mean you stop valuing people or stop building connections. It simply means you no longer depend on them as your only source of strength, because you understand that your real stability comes from something deeper, something that has already carried you through situations where human support alone would not have been enough. And this is why you can move differently, think differently, and respond differently compared to others, because while they are constantly worried about who is backing them, who is helping them, and who is standing with them, you are focused on staying aligned, staying patient, and staying consistent, because you know that when you do your part, the support you need will arrive in the form it is meant to, at the time it is meant to, and in a way that serves your growth instead of limiting it. And over time, this creates a powerful shift in your life, because you stop chasing support and you start attracting it. You stop forcing outcomes and you start aligning with them. And you stop feeling like you have to control everything, and you start trusting that not everything needs to be controlled for it to work in your favor. And this is where your strength becomes different, because it is no longer based only on what you can do on your own or what others can do for you. It is based on a combination of effort, patience, awareness, and trust in a support system that operates beyond what is visible. And once you truly understand this, you will never feel the same kind of fear or insecurity again, because you will know from experience that even when things look uncertain on the outside, there is still something working in your favor behind the scenes, guiding you, protecting you, and positioning you exactly where you need to be, even if you cannot fully see it yet. There comes a point in your journey where you start noticing a strange pattern, a pattern that does not make sense on the surface, but becomes very clear once you understand it deeply. And that is the way certain people remain focused on you, even when you are no longer engaging with them, even when you have moved on, even when you have chosen silence over reaction, because instead of letting you go, they keep watching, analyzing, talking, and trying to figure you out. And at first this can feel confusing or even frustrating, because you may wonder why someone would invest so much energy into observing your life when you are not doing the same to them. But the reality is that this kind of attention is not driven by simple curiosity. It is driven by something deeper, something they cannot easily explain within themselves, because your presence challenges their understanding of how things are supposed to work. They expected you to break under pressure. They expected you to react emotionally. They expected you to lose direction after facing difficulty. And when none of that happened, it created a kind of mental conflict inside them, because now they are forced to question their assumptions, not just about you, but about themselves. And instead of doing that internal work, they choose the easier path, which is to keep watching you, to keep analyzing your behavior, and to keep trying to find a logical explanation for something that is not purely logical. And this is where their obsession begins to grow, because the more they observe you, the more they realize that your progress does not follow the patterns they are familiar with. Your calmness does not match the situations you have been through. Your growth does not align with the setbacks you faced. And your ability to keep moving forward without constant validation or support makes them uncomfortable, because it highlights a gap between how they operate and how you operate. And instead of accepting that difference, they become fixated on closing that gap by understanding you, controlling you, or somehow reducing your impact. But the more they try, the more they fail, because what they are trying to analyze is not just your actions, it is the mindset, the discipline, and the unseen support behind those actions. And those are things they cannot fully access just by watching from the outside. And over time, this creates a cycle where their attention remains locked on you, while your attention remains focused on your own path. And that difference in focus is what continues to separate you, because while they are investing energy in observation, comparison, and silent competition, you are investing energy in growth, consistency, and forward movement. And this is why their position does not change while yours continues to evolve. And eventually, their obsession becomes more visible, not necessarily through direct confrontation, but through indirect behavior, repeated mentions, subtle attempts to stay connected to your life, or an inability to fully move on from you. And this is where it becomes important for you to understand that their behavior is not a reflection of your responsibility, it is a reflection of their internal struggle, because they are dealing with something they cannot fully understand. And instead of resolving it within themselves, they project it outward by focusing on you. And if you are not careful, you might feel pulled into that energy. You might feel the urge to respond, explain yourself, or prove something. But that is exactly what you need to avoid. Because the moment you shift your focus from your path to their perception, you lose the advantage that has been carrying you forward. And the truth is, you do not need to be understood by everyone to keep progressing. You do not need to explain your growth to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. And you do not need to react to every form of silent attention directed toward you, because your strength lies in your ability to stay aligned with your own direction, regardless of who is watching. And once you fully accept this, their obsession loses its power over you, because you stop seeing it as something that requires your response and start seeing it as something that confirms your difference. And that difference is not something you need to hide, reduce, or explain. It is something you need to maintain by continuing to focus on your growth, your discipline, and your purpose. And over time, this creates a clear outcome, where they remain stuck trying to understand you, while you continue moving forward without needing their understanding at all. And that is when the dynamic fully shifts, because the person who was once being watched becomes the one who is no longer affected by being watched, and the people who were once observing from a position of judgment or competition are left observing from a distance they cannot close, not because you pushed them away, but because your path required a level of focus and alignment that they were never willing to develop within themselves. There comes a moment in every chosen person's journey where everything that once felt confusing, painful, delayed, or even unfair begins to connect in a way that completely changes how you see your life. And this moment does not arrive loudly or all at once. But when it does unfold, it carries a level of clarity that cannot be ignored, because you start to see how every setback you experienced was not random, how every delay you struggled with was not meaningless, and how every situation that tested your patience was actually shaping you for something that required a stronger, more aware version of you. And what makes this realization so powerful is that it does not come from what people tell you. It comes from what you finally see for yourself through your own experience, because you begin to recognize patterns that were always there, but were hidden by your limited perspective at the time. You begin to understand why certain people were removed from your life, even when you wanted them to stay. Why certain opportunities did not work out even when you were ready for them, and why certain struggles repeated themselves until you learned something deeper from them. And this is where everything starts to feel intentional rather than accidental, because you can now trace how each moment, even the ones that hurt the most, played a role in building your awareness, your discipline, your patience, and your ability to move forward without losing yourself. And as this understanding grows stronger, it creates a shift, not only inside you, but also around you, because the same people who once doubted you, misunderstood you, or underestimated your strength begin to notice a change that they cannot ignore. They start to see results that do not match the version of you they had in their mind. They start to witness your growth in ways that contradict everything they believed about you. And this is where their confusion turns into shock, because they were only looking at your life from a surface level. They saw your struggles, but did not see your endurance. They saw your delays, but did not understand your preparation. And they saw your silence, but mistook it for weakness. And now they are forced to face a reality where all of those assumptions no longer hold up, because your progress begins to speak in a way that does not require explanation. And what makes this moment even more powerful is that it is not just about proving others wrong. It is about you finally understanding your own journey with complete clarity, because you are no longer questioning why things happened the way they did. You are no longer stuck trying to make sense of your past, and you are no longer carrying the same confusion that once held you back. Instead, you are moving with certainty, with a deep inner understanding that everything you went through had a purpose that is now being revealed through your current position. And this clarity changes how you approach everything moving forward, because you stop doubting your path, you stop comparing your timing to others, and you stop feeling like you are behind or missing out, and you start recognizing that your journey has been uniquely structured in a way that could not have been rushed or forced. And this realization also strengthens your patience, because you now understand that what is coming next is not something ordinary. It is something that required all the preparation you went through, all the lessons you learned, and all the growth you experienced. And this is why it feels different. This is why it carries more weight, and this is why it will not only impact you, but also change how others see you, because they will finally be able to see the results of something they never fully understood. And in that moment, their opinions, their doubts, and their past judgments lose their importance, not because you are trying to prove anything to them, but because you have reached a level where your focus is no longer on how you are perceived. It is on continuing to move forward with the same alignment, discipline, and awareness that brought you to this point. And as this phase continues to unfold, you will notice that the same protection that carried you through your struggles is now working in a more visible way, opening doors that once felt impossible, placing you in situations that match your growth, and connecting you with opportunities that align with your purpose. And this is where everything starts to feel real in a new way, because you are no longer just believing that you are being guided and protected. You are actually seeing it play out in front of you through your results, your environment, and your progress. And that is what makes this moment so powerful, because it is not based on hope or assumption anymore. It is based on clear evidence that your journey was never random, never unsupported, and never without direction. And once you fully experience this, you cannot go back to thinking the way you used to. You cannot return to doubting yourself the same way, and you cannot allow fear to control your decisions like it once did, because you now have proof that you were being prepared even when you felt lost, proof that you were being protected even when you felt exposed, and proof that everything you went through was leading you to a point where not only you, but everyone around you would finally be able to see the full picture. And that is why what is coming will not just surprise people, it will completely shock them. because they were only watching parts of your journey without understanding the process behind it. And now they are about to witness the outcome of something that was built over time, shaped through struggle, and carried forward through a level of support they could never see. And in the end, this moment is not just about arrival, it is about revelation. It is about everything becoming clear in a way that removes doubt, replaces confusion with certainty, and shows you that you were never walking this path alone, even in the moments when it felt like you were. Conclusion. In the end, everything you have gone through was never meaningless. Even the moments that felt heavy, confusing, or unfair were quietly shaping you into someone stronger, more aware, and more aligned with a path that was never random, because your journey was never just about pain or pressure. It was about preparation, protection, and transformation happening at a level you could not fully understand at the time. And now, as you start to look back, you begin to see that nothing truly broke you the way it could have. Nothing fully stopped you the way it was meant to. And nothing removed your direction, even when everything around you seemed unstable. And this is where the deeper truth settles inside you, that you were always being guided through situations rather than abandoned in them, even when it felt like silence, even when it felt like delay, and even when it felt like loss. And now, as your awareness grows, you stop living with the same confusion that once weighed you down. You stop questioning every setback as failure, and you start understanding it as part of a much bigger design that was building you step by step. And this understanding gives you a different kind of strength, not the kind that comes from external validation or temporary success, but the kind that comes from knowing your story had direction, even when you could not see it. And as you move forward from here, you no longer carry yourself like someone who is lost in their journey, but like someone who has been shaped, guided, and carried through every stage of it. And that realization changes everything about how you see your past, how you handle your present, and how you step into your future. Because now you know that what is coming next is not separate from your struggles. It is the result of everything you survived, learned, and became along the way.